Marina Devereux had spent 2 monsoon seasons cataloging every loggerhead nest that clung to the bow-shaped beaches of Bahia de la Esperanza. The bay sat on the far edge of a Caribbean archipelago rarely visited by anyone but fishermen and the occasional live-aboard sailboat. From her rented plywood hut, she could hear the surf move like a gigantic animal in its sleep, and each dawn she walked the tide line, pressing dense into the damp sand, seeking tracks, ripple comma shapes that testified a female turtle had hauled herself ashore to bury a clutch of round, leathery eggs. Money for conservation in the region was thin, and the university grant that paid Marina's salary scarcely covered fuel for the skiff she used to monitor offshore foraging grounds. So when she posted a faded flyer in the harbor cafe asking for volunteers capable of free diving or scuba work, she expected little response. The next afternoon, a man knocked on the frame of her shack where mosquito netting stirred like ghost curtains. "Name's Rafael Cortez," he said, Spanish vowels rounded by traces of Bahamian English. Sun bleached his curls the color of wet wheat. A braided cord held a rusted dive knife against one tanned calf. "I teach tourists bubbles and buoyancy down at El Anzuelo Dive Shop. But what I really care about is what you care about." He tapped the loggerhead photo on her whiteboard. "I'd like to help." Marina eyed him. Fit, easy smile, the casual confidence of someone who trusted water more than land. Volunteers often started with enthusiasm, then vanished after the first mosquito-swarmed night patrol. Still, she needed hands. "Turtles nest mostly under darkness," she warned. "Shift runs midnight till dawn. Sand fleas assume your ankles are a breakfast buffet." "You sure? Try me," he said, offering a salute with the dive mask hooked to his belt. That evening, they hiked to Playa Mangle, moonlight glassing the waves silver. Loggerheads waited offshore until tides coaxed them landward. Sometimes, Marina and her assistant spent hours doing nothing but listening to the rhythmic hush. Raphael, crouched beside her, seemed content with stillness. He traced constellations, naming them in Spanish and English: Carina, Crux, the hazy smear of the Milky Way. In lulls, he asked questions about hatchling sex ratios, satellite tags, fibropapillomatosis, and Marina noted the sincerity in his curiosity. Near 2 a.m., the sea parted, and a female emerged, immense as an overturned rowboat. Raphael never reached for a flashlight. He watched by moon alone as the turtle hauled up the berm, scooping sand like slow artillery fire. Marina measured carapace length, counted contractions of the hind flippers, and slipped a temperature logger into the nest. When the turtle finished disguising her tracks and lumbered seaward, Raphael exhaled a laugh filled with wonder. "That," he whispered, "felt sacred." Marina smiled despite herself. "Remember it," she said. "By August, when we dig up drowned clutches or find tracks ending in poachers' boot prints, you'll need to hold on to this moment." Over the next 6 weeks, Raphael proved indispensable. He repaired the sputtering outboard with improvised gaskets cut from flip-flop straps, mapped reef ledges where juveniles foraged, and built a platform from scrap plywood so Marina's data tablets wouldn't drown in squalls, even the small things. The way he lifted buckets of hatchlings with exaggerated gentleness or left jars of hibiscus tea on her steps made Marina's solitary project feel suddenly collaborative. Yet she kept professional distance. Grants ended, volunteers moved on. Affection, she reminded herself, was as transient as plankton bloom. One July afternoon, they motored toward deeper water to retrieve an acoustic receiver Marina had deployed months earlier. Clouds towered like bruised anvils. Between swells, Raphael joked about teaching her to spear invasive lionfish. Marina countered with statistics on mercury accumulation in apex predators. They were still trading facts and teasing when they surfaced beside the buoy. But the receiver was gone. Rope sliced clean. Raphael's brow furrowed. Storm could have snapped it? Marina shook her head. Line's too neat. Someone cut it. Later, diving along the reef slope, they found stranger evidence. Broken coral shelves, discarded nylon sacks, and lodged in a crevice, a long metal spike smeared with dark residue. Turtle blood turns the water rust-colored before fading. Marina had seen it after shark attacks, but sharks didn't use spikes. That night, Marina drove the skiff inland until mangroves thickened around a lagoon. Under red lamp, she photographed fresh nests. But her mind replayed the severed rope, the bloodied spike. Poachers trafficked sea turtles for meat, oil, and curios carved from shell. Trade banned under CITES, but still lucrative. She'd read reports of nesting beaches in Nicaragua stripped bare. Esperanza, undeveloped and remote, would tempt that same greed. When she returned to camp past midnight, Raphael sat on the pier, bare feet dangling, clarinet in his hands. He coaxed low, velvety notes that mingled with surf. Couldn't sleep, he explained, setting the instrument aside. Thinking about what we saw. Marina sat beside him, moon wreathing them in coral pink glow as high clouds refracted light. If poachers are operating near the reef, they'll hit nests next. She rubbed her arms through the night was warm. I'm one researcher with faulty radio. Authorities won't motor out here for rumors. My cousin's on the coastal patrol, Raphael said. But without proof, command won't waste fuel. He paused. So, we collect proof. Days later, they planned their stakeout. Raphael borrowed underwater cameras from the dive shop. Marina pre-programmed them to trigger on motion. At dusk, they slipped into water-tinted amethyst by setting sun. One camera they strapped beneath an overhang where turtles slept, wedged between coral buttresses. Another they buried near a trail, leading from beach to mangrove, disguised by seagrass. While Raphael calibrated infrared beams, Marina floated, ears filled with crackle of snapping shrimp. Looking sideways, she saw him outlined by moon-rippled light, mask lifted to his forehead, grin flashing white. In that liquid atmosphere, something within her shifted. The line between partnership and intimacy dissolving. She pushed the thought away, but the warm throb remained. 2 nights passed without incident. On the third, they reviewed footage and found silhouettes of men, 3 at least, wading ashore, dragging plastic crates. One carried a pole like a harpoon. Timestamp, Boat 2.14. Marina's stomach plunged. Raphael's jaw hardened. They radioed coastal patrol. Static swallowed the call. Clouds heavy with rain blocked satellite signal. Even if they reached authorities, response would take hours. By then, nests would be raided. Females butchered for callipee. We go now, Raphael said. Marina's pulse hammered. And do what? We're 2 people. Raphael opened a waterproof box. Flares, dive lights, a coil of line. Sometimes visibility stops a crime. Let's give them an audience they don't want. They waited until moon slipped free of clouds, its reflection silvering the sea like a blade. Then they steered the skiff without engine, just paddles, keeping silent. Near shore, figures clustered around a struggling mass. A turtle lay flipped on her carapace, flippers beating sand in futile arcs. One man raised the spike. Marina fired a flare. The beach detonated into crimson light, shadows thrown wild across palms. Raphael shouted, switching on flood beam. Startled, poachers scattered. 2 sprinted toward mangroves. The third bolted into the shallows. Marina leapt from the skiff, heart clawing, and righted the turtle with Raphael's help. She felt breath leave her in sobbing relief as the animal crawled to the water. But the poachers regrouped. A stone whistled past Marina's ear. Another thudded into the hull. Raphael thrust the skiff between her and the beach. "Get aboard!" he yelled. The man with the harpoon plunged through surf toward them. Raphael met him waist-deep, parrying the thrust with the oar. Moon glanced off wet metal. Marina seized a life ring, swinging. It smacked the attacker's shoulder. He staggered back, then lunged again. Raphael sidestepped, grabbing the pole's shaft. A brief struggle, a twist, and the harpoon spun away. Their assailant fell, water exploding around him. Sirens wailed distant but approaching. The flare's brightness seen by a patrol boat rounding the cape. The remaining poachers fled into darkness. When light swept the beach minutes later, only sand, a few footprints, and the wounded pride of the harpooner remained. He cowered at rifle point while officers cuffed him. Dawn poured peach hues over the bay as statements were taken. The suspect, a Honduran national, refused details, but evidence, crates, knives, broken eggs told its story. Patrol promised a larger investigation. Marina's shoulders sagged, exhaustion curling her posture. Raphael squeezed her hand. She allowed the comfort, too tired to argue. In following weeks, officials arrested 2 more culprits, dismantling a ring smuggling turtle meat to upscale restaurants. News outlets arrived, interviewing Marina on conservation, Raphael on citizen bravery. Tourists posed selfies beside the dive shop mural of a loggerhead, painted overnight by local school kids. Donations doubled. Yet, amid applause, Marina grappled with complicated feelings. She and Raphael had grown bound by shared peril. Late-night data entry, fueled by coffee rum. Laughter impossible to suppress. Once, while washing algae-coated tags, their hands brushed. Electricity flared through her ribcage. She feared jeopardizing the professionalism that anchored her research. She also feared what leaving would cost her heart when field season ended. One evening, after guiding hatchlings to sea beneath red headlamps, Raphael suggested a dive at La Catedral, a cavern where coral pillars rose like organ pipes. They descended at twilight, water cobalt deepening toward indigo. Reef fish glittered like coins tossed in fountains. Inside the chamber, beams from their torches intertwined, painting the walls in ribbons of pale gold. Raphael signaled, "Are you okay?" Marina answered with the circle of thumb and forefinger. Then he pointed upward. Moonlight pooled through a collapsed ceiling, sifting into shards that shivered with plankton. He unclipped his tank, letting it float beside him, and removed the regulator, lips framing words she couldn't hear but could read. Hermosa, valiente. Marina's throat constricted. Air bubbles blossomed around them, ascending like silver snow. At the surface inside the cavern, they tread water within a bowl of stone. Moon hung overhead, magnified by reflection until it looked close enough to kiss. Coral polyps along the rim glowed faint fluorescent pink, a phenomenon Marina studied yet never witnessed firsthand. "Coral moonlight," Raphael murmured. "Like the ocean's approval." She laughed, water lapping her chin. "Scientifically unverified." Then softened. "But beautiful." Raphael brushed a wet lock from her forehead. His expression held both mischief and earnestness. "I want to keep working with you. Past this season, wherever turtles take you." Marina felt tides shift within. Walls she'd built during years of transient fieldwork cracked. "Field stations move," she said cautiously. "Florida, Cape Verde, Oman." "I'm a scuba bum," he replied. "My office is wherever salt water exists." He lifted her hand, calloused thumb traversing the veins on her wrist. "Say yes." She thought of migrations, loggerheads navigating entire oceans, guided by magnetic signatures they imprinted upon as hatchlings. They return decades later to the natal shore, currents and distance be damned. Commitment coded into their biology. Maybe humans could emulate that faith. Marina inhaled, lungs filling with salty air. Yes, she said. Raphael's grin spread like sunrise. He kissed her then, under coral moonlight, gentle and certain. Seawater tasted slightly sweet where their mouths met. Around them, the silence of stone cathedral was broken only by echoing droplets. And somewhere outside, a turtle surfaced to breathe, exhaling like a distant sigh of approval. The last weeks of summer unfurled with the steadiness of trade winds. Patrol boats now swept beaches nightly. Poaching attempts ceased. Marina and Raphael focused on science, implanting pit tags, releasing hatchlings, training local kids who pedaled bikes from inland villages to volunteer. Their favorite evenings were windless, when sea mirrored sky so perfectly, horizon vanished, and stars seemed to nest amid waves. August 28th marked the project's conclusion. Crates of equipment were labeled for shipment. Computers backed up. Marina found herself staring too long at packed mugs, superstitiously afraid that boxing them meant this happiness might also be shelved. Raphael approached carrying 2 kites fashioned from turtle-friendly biodegradable film, tails braided from seagrass rope. "Graduation gifts for the hatchlings we've shepherded," he joked. "But maybe for us too." They hiked to the bluff above Playa Mangle, where warm thermals wafted. The kites climbed, silhouettes resembling turtles, swimming the sky. Marina's hair whipped across her face. Raphael secured an arm around her waist, as though anchoring her to earth. "What now?" she asked softly. "I have a proposition." He lowered his voice conspiratorially. "There's a research boat needing dive support tracing loggerhead migrations across the Atlantic. Leaves from Madeira in 3 weeks. They could use a marine biologist and a trilingual dive instructor who plays mediocre clarinet." Marina's pulse quickened with the same exhilarating fear she'd felt confronting poachers. Not danger, but possibility. "Think they'd want us both?" "Already asked. They said yes before finishing my sentence." A laugh burst from her, bright and buoyant, and she spun, kite string carving helix patterns between them. Raphael caught her mid-turn and kissed her sun-freckled shoulder. Far below, the surf pounded ancient rhythms. Above, kites soared, mock turtles tracing arcs older than cartographers' maps. In that instant, Marina knew she no longer belonged solely to solitary data sheets or to the fear of attachment. Like the loggerheads she studied, who surrendered themselves to current, yet carried home inside them, she could travel and still remain tethered. Night settled, purple and gold draining into ink. They reeled in their sky swimmers and descended the path to beach where phosphorescence lit each footstep. From the dark, a hatchling emerged, late from its nest, instinct carrying it toward moon's glow. Marina cradled the tiny creature, heart fragile beneath fingernail-thin plastron. She set it at water's edge and whispered, "Buen viaje." It paddled into foam, destiny ahead and behind. Raphael slipped his fingers through hers. "Ready, Professora?" She traced their joined hands, callus meeting callus, and thought, ready for ocean roads, ready for love learned under coral moonlight. The tide breathed out, breathed in, and together they walked forward until the waves erased their footprints, leaving only starlight on water and the promise of return.